We are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes. It's power rankings time. Head into the final game of the regular season, Blake. We had some big shakeups in our rankings this week. Frankly, we didn't know what to do with about 2/3 of the league, but our staff made it to 10th, and we start at the bottom as always. For the second week in a row, even after a win, your number 14 team is the Texas A&M Aggies. In a season that just sort of defies description, A&M could not even definitively put away the worst team in the FBS in UMass, but it did win, so there was that.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about the Aggies right now.
Sometimes pictures do better than words.
Well, that's true. But for some reason, what I had queued up here has decided to freeze, and I can't not Hugh freeze. It's not. It's
This
not.
needs to unfreeze.
It's not loading. I will try to pull this up by the time we get to the end. We may just have to. I may just throw it in on you once this thing stops freezing, and I can actually get this to share. I'll just throw it in randomly. That may make it better, but I'm not sure what's going to make A&M season better, other than a win against LSU this weekend. And again, it's just been a lost season for the Aggies. And as I always say, when you're paying your coach that amount of money, I don't think you can really afford lost seasons. But nonetheless, final week of the regular season, and I don't think we ever thought we'd be talking about A&M sitting in the number 14 spot.
Auburn at 13. I thought Auburn might move up after a pretty nice win over a good Western Kentucky team, but Auburn sits at 13 this week.
Yeah, as we always say, these are our composite rankings. So we do all of our individual staff members submit their own. And I just think it was kind of one of those where, by virtue of one team that has really started to move up the ladder, it was like you almost just kind of had to put Auburn here, even though they did get a nice win over Western Kentucky and certainly had a lot of momentum under the Cadillac there. Now go into the Iron Bowl with a winning streak, and that's just not something we'd have to say about the Tigers this season. So.
Number 12, another Tiger team, Missouri, which also won, beat an awful New Mexico State team this weekend in blowout fashion. I thought Missouri might be a little bit higher, but Missouri sitting at 12.
Well, again, it's not necessarily about what you do; it's about what others do around you. And I think that again, there's going to be one team we talk about here in a second that's done more recently than Missouri in terms of making their move up the SEC ladder here. But yes, Missouri, aside from the one game against Tennessee, as we've said, Chris, they've had a shot in every game except, SEC wise, they've had a shot in every game they played in. Obviously, the Kansas State game, they got blown out, but SEC games, just think about how different things could be for Missouri right now. A couple of different plays here or there because they've been right there in all but the Tennessee one. So,
Blake, I never in a million years thought we'd be saying this.
no.
Number 11 this week, the Vanderbilt Commodores. Vanderbilt had been last every single week in our power rankings from preseason until last week. Vandy moved up to, I think, 12 or 13 last week, and then the Commodores go out and shock the Gators, who are one spot in front of them. I think of all the crazy things we have seen in the SEC this year, besides A&M being last, this may be the next craziest.
Well, look, and if you're a Vanderbilt fan too, you're probably saying, well, by virtue of how things have
Beating
gone,
Florida.
You're gonna expect the next two teams probably or somewhere in there are going to be Florida and Kentucky. So it's like we beat both of them, right? As we always say, it is all about kind of the full picture. But I tell you, Chris, I could even make the argument right now that you can put the Commodores ahead of these two. And I know like we say, especially once it gets this late in the season, you can play the head-to-head game, but there's way more. There's more to it than just that. But I wouldn't argue if someone said, "Hey, I'm going to put Vanderbilt ahead of Florida and Kentucky right now," because the way they're playing and the trajectory of where things are going. Yeah, I mean but I'm with you. I would have never thought they'd be at 11, even with again an argument to be made into the top 10. So,
well, and this is the territory where you play the head-to-head game.
Yeah, it's just
if you're Missouri going, well, we beat Vandy. Well, you're in that. You're in a glut of SEC East teams right now where we are in the power rankings where everybody's got something on everybody else. And that's just where it's settled. Number 9, I think this might be as low as we've had this team all year, the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, Kentucky, it's as we said, they've also been a team that feels like they've been right there in a lot of games, but Offensively, just have not been able to kind of turn that corner just yet. But the defense has given them a chance. And as you and I talk about in the video previewing their Week 13 game against Louisville, another interesting matchup for the Cats this week. And we'll see if they can find a way to just get something going consistently on the offensive side.
Okay, rounding out the bottom half of the power rankings, we got South Carolina at 8, a team that just week to week, God help you if you know what to do with the Gamecocks, because just as soon as it looks good, it looks awful the next week. But the last look at them, it looked really good in probably the most shocking result in college football this season.
Do we have Florida ahead of South Carolina?
No, we do not. We have
So where do
South
we
Carolina ahead of Florida.
Where do we
We
have
go
Florida?
South Carolina 8, Kentucky 9, Florida 10.
Oh, okay. So we skipped Florida.
No, we didn't. I included them with Vanderbilt, but
okay, all right. Yeah, I just want to make
Vanderbilt
sure.
had just beaten them.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure.
Florida's another one where it's going. Wait a minute. Then look, two weeks ago, Florida just blew South Carolina to smithereens.
Right, that's what it's hard to figure out, right? I mean, really think about this. We have 5 SEC East teams here, as you said, all sandwiched together. And if you look at the results between those teams, your head's going to spin. Because yeah, it's a lot to figure out. But South Carolina makes the jump up, of course. There's no other way they couldn't after beating Tennessee the way they beat them. And now we'll see if they can do it for the second week in a row to knock a team out of the college playoff discussion when they head to Clemson. But yeah, I mean, South Carolina, just like with some other teams in this group, I still think it's good luck trying to figure out what you're going to get necessarily on any given game day. But yeah, Gamecocks have earned this spot.
Okay, before we get to the top half of our power rankings and give Blake time to pull something if he can or
I'm
cannot.
working on it.
Shout out to our sponsor, Stakes. STAKES. You can predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can forever submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Free to join, free to play. You can win stuff. What's not to like about Stakes? Okay. I'll take that as a no on your part.
Sometimes technical issues happen. If you've watched our channel since its inception, right now for some reason I cannot get the button to work that I need to get it to work. So
maybe
live stream
we'll do this in the Wednesday live stream,
yes,
which might be better. In fact,
yes.
Okay, Arkansas and Ole Miss tied at number 6. Which of course they just settled that on the field with Arkansas winning. Arkansas also 6-5, Ole Miss 8-3. I mean, again, you're going to get these little contradictions in head-to-head stuff, but we've got the Rebels and the Razorbacks tied, both with big games coming up this week.
Yeah, this is one, like you said. I mean, he's obviously just settled on the field, but it's Ole Miss has obviously lost a lot of momentum since, they had the close call against Alabama. And then, it's just kind of a team that just, like we said, put up a bunch of yards against Arkansas, but just could not find a way. I mean, down 42-6 at one point. So very disappointing there. Arkansas, we mentioned, probably played the toughest schedule of anybody this season. Just, it's been a grind for the Razorbacks. And, had they stayed healthy the entire year, which was going to be hard to do, again, given that schedule, who knows kind of what we're talking about with them. But, yeah, kind of a, it's about where you put these teams, and I don't really know where else you put them. Like you said, a lot of teams just hard to figure out where to put in the SEC, but I think that these two probably belong right here in this range.
And Ole Miss has probably played the easiest schedule in the league by contrast. So, number 5, Mississippi State. The Bulldogs sitting at 7-4. Had a brutal schedule also. But that's been a pretty good team, very solid on defense. And, of course, we'll have the Egg Bowl on Thursday night, where you could see some shuffling in the power rankings if Ole Miss, which is favored in that game, wins it.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State is another team that's just like, what do we do with them at times? Because Yeah, they've also been, kind of hard to figure out in terms of exactly where to put them. But I mean, it's just kind of like I said, it's been such a strange finish to the season. I think for a lot of different teams, and for Mississippi State, I mean, really, Chris, I guess we could say for them. I mean, have they played their best football since that Arkansas game? Maybe that was a month and a half ago.
Uh,
I mean, really? I
I mean,
mean,
they didn't play well against Georgia. State fans might argue officiating played a part in that one,
well,
but
but my point is they lost to
Georgia
Kentucky.
also played a part in that too.
They lost at Alabama, which I know it's Alabama. Um, Auburn, they have to beat Auburn in overtime. I'm just saying in terms of playing their best. That's all. I'm not saying that obviously they've won
Yeah.
some games here, but beat ETSU. So yeah, this will be a challenge, and I think this will, they would feel pretty good about cementing the spot where we have them in this week's rankings if they can win at Ole Miss. So
Okay, top four. I think everybody knows who the four teams are. It's just a matter of the order. Again, this was not easy, but we settled in at Tennessee in the 4 spot. I mean, maybe a little recency bias with how bad Tennessee looked, but you kind of got to put the two teams that are winning the divisions at the top, and then that becomes Tennessee and Alabama. Tennessee beat Alabama. Alabama on the balance, the computers like a little bit more. Pick your poison here, but we went Tennessee 4, Alabama 3, LSU 2, Georgia 1, and I think that's the way it should go. I feel like I don't know if Tennessee got the short end of the stick there, but that's just how it felt.
I mean, Chris, they gave up 63 points and lost by 25 at
Well, I
South Carolina.
know, but
But it's like I know we have to play that game, but I know they beat Alabama, and you can say,
Yeah.
well, they should be ahead of Alabama, but at the same time, you can play the what if game in all these. I mean, I don't think Alabama loses by 25 and gives up 63 at South Carolina. And so again, you can play all these different what if games, and like you said, I'm not going to argue a lot either way. But at this point, I'm sure Tennessee fans are just as disappointed as anybody. So they probably don't care if they're 3 or 4 because all they know is they're starting quarterbacks out for the season with an ACL, and they're out of the college football playoff. So yeah, certainly a disappointing loss, as we said. I'm not surprised to see them drop this far. And again, it is about kind of the full picture. And as we keep saying, Alabama's been a team that's come out on the positive side of some of these close games with a play here or there, but also, came out on the negative side against Tennessee and LSU with a couple plays. So, yeah, certainly things could be different if you play the what if game too for the Crimson Tide. And yeah, I mean, like you said, I think before we had Georgia and Tennessee at 1 and 2, we were keeping Tennessee at 2 by virtue of beating LSU. And still feeling like maybe they were the better team. But now I think it's pretty clear you have to put Georgia at 1, LSU 2.
Well, LSU statistically the least impressive of those 3 teams. Scoring margins for these 3 teams: LSU 13.4, Bama 22.8, Tennessee 20.9. Per play yardage margin: LSU 0.9, Alabama 2.3, Tennessee 1.6. So that the stats would suggest LSU is not as good as Bama or Tennessee, but wins and losses matter too.
Yeah, so I was going to say wins and losses matter, and I think also how you win and how you lose.
Otherwise, why do you play the game?
Too. Right. I just think like you said, maybe it is a little recency bias, but I'm not surprised our staff moved Tennessee down that far to put them at this spot because the way they lost, if they lose a close game, I don't think we're dropping them maybe to this point, although some would make the argument, but yeah, it's just how they lost was just so, just kind of just smacked you in the face a little bit. Made you really rethink a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, and the top 4 teams are all top 10 teams in the country. So,
yeah.
Georgia number 1, the Bulldogs, the only unbeaten team in the league. Scoring margin 27.3 points a game. Best yardage differential per play in the league at 2.4. Georgia not great on special teams, -3 in turnovers. But yeah, I mean, that defense has been dominant, and Georgia is 1 win away from cementing a bid to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think they're in no matter what at this point.
Probably.
Again, unless they lose to Georgia Tech, then that's a different discussion. But I mean, I think Georgia, defending national champion, have not lost a game. Had to reload. They've reloaded, and here they are, like you said, in a pretty good spot heading into the final week of the season and then the SEC championship.
All right. Thanks for watching our power rankings. We'll be doing Hoops power rankings soon, I think. And we have our live stream Wednesday nights, 8 Central. Be sure to check that. Maybe Blake will get his video working at that point and have a little treat for you. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes.